Friends, if you are alone and sad, then believe me, this is the most inspiring and motivational story you needed right now. Stay with us till the end. Let's begin the story. In a small village there lived a man named Raju. He was born into a poor family. Raju's family consisted of just him and his wife. They lived in a modest house, struggling to make ends meet. Raju worked as a laborer, doing whatever jobs he could find to feed himself and his wife. Over time, Raju's wife became pregnant, and hearing this news brought him great joy. He began to dream of the future, imagining a small child playing in their home. He thought, soon, our house will be filled with the laughter of a little one. However, life had other plans that Raju was completely unaware of. As time passed, the day finally arrived when Raju's wife was about to give birth. Raju was very eager and excited. He took his wife to the hospital. As his wife was being admitted, Raju realized that he needed to arrange some money for the expenses. Leaving his wife in the care of the hospital staff, he set out to find the funds. On his way back, tragedy struck. Raju got hit in a terrible accident and died on the spot. While his body was being cremated by the villagers, his wife was giving birth to a baby boy in the hospital. When the news of Raju's death reached his wife, her world shattered. She was left to fend for herself, grieving over the death of her husband while holding her newborn baby in her arms. The woman wept uncontrollably, questioning God. Why did you take my husband away from me? What will I do now? How will I raise this child on my own? Her grief was overwhelming, as her husband had been her only support in the world. Some of the villagers tried to comfort her, reminding her that birth and death are in God's hands and that no one can escape destiny. What has happened cannot be changed, they said, but you must now focus on your child and the new life that has come into your home. With time, the woman gathered her strength, realizing that she had no one to rely on but herself. She took up work as a cleaner in other people's homes, doing whatever jobs she could find. With the little money she earned, she was able to take care of her baby boy. Though her life was filled with hardships, she never gave up. Slowly but surely, her child began to grow. When the boy turned 5, she enrolled him in the village's government school. She had a dream that her son would one day be educated and never have to beg or struggle the way she had. The boy, understanding the sacrifices his mother was making, studied diligently. He knew that his father had died before he was born and that his mother was his only source of support. Years went by, and the boy reached the age of 14. Around this time, his mother's health began to decline. She initially thought it was just a minor illness and didn't pay much attention to it. However, her condition worsened, and soon she was unable to go to work. The family had very little money, and it became clear that she couldn't afford proper medical treatment. Seeing his mother so ill, the boy became very worried. He told her, "Mother, don't worry. I'll go to the doctor and bring you medicine. You'll be better soon." His words filled his mother's eyes with tears. She replied, "Son, there is no need for you to go anywhere. My time has come. I want to go and be with your father now. But before I go, I want you to promise me something. Always live with dignity, never beg from anyone. Work hard for everything you need, and never lower your self-respect." The boy promised his mother that he would always live by her words. He left the house to fetch medicine for her, but by the time he returned, his mother had passed away. Grief-stricken, the boy arranged for her last rites with the help of the villagers. Now completely alone, he stood at a crossroads. He had no parents, no siblings, and no support from his extended family. But he remembered his mother's words and resolved to never beg from anyone. The boy continued to work odd jobs, tending fields or working at the local tea shop to earn a living. With the little money he made, he managed to pay for his schooling and basic needs. Despite all the hardships he faced, he never gave up on his education. He worked during the day and studied at night, determined to make something of himself. As the boy grew older, he realized that his small village could no longer provide the education he needed. So, when he finished his basic schooling, he moved to the city to pursue higher education. In the city, life was even harder. He had to find work to pay for his studies and cover his living expenses. He would often go without food for days, but he never lost sight of his goal. One day, after a long day of searching for work and finding none, the boy returned to his small room, exhausted and hungry. He had no money left for food, and his situation seemed hopeless. Lying in bed, he thought about begging for food, but remembered his mother's advice. "Never beg," she had told him. "Always earn what you need." The boy struggled with his thoughts, wondering how he would survive without food or money. The next day, he went out again, determined to find work. But luck was not on his side, and he spent another day without finding a job. By the end of the day, he was weak with hunger. He thought to himself, "How will I survive if I don't eat? Maybe I should just ask for help." But deep down, he knew that begging was not an option. He reminded himself of his mother's words once more and decided that asking for help was different from begging. The boy found the courage to approach a large house on the outskirts of the village. He knocked on the door, and a kind woman answered. She saw the hunger and sadness in the boy's eyes and asked, "What do you need, son? How can I help you?" The boy, swallowing his pride, said, "I am thirsty. May I have a glass of water?" The woman, who was a mother herself, immediately understood the boy's situation. She invited him inside and brought him not just water, but a glass of milk and some food as well. The boy, grateful beyond words, accepted the food and ate quietly, feeling the warmth of the woman's kindness. The woman watched over him as if he were her own child, telling him to eat slowly and take his time. After finishing the meal, the boy said, "Thank you, ma'am. I asked for water, and you gave me milk and food. How can I ever repay you?" The woman smiled and said, "Son, I gave you food because you needed it, not because I expect something in return. But if you truly want to repay me, then promise me this. One day, when you are able, help someone else in need, just as I have helped you." The boy promised, and from that day forward, he carried the memory of the woman's kindness with him wherever he went. The boy, having received the kindness of the woman, continued to live his life with the lessons of dignity and self-reliance that his mother had taught him. He worked hard, never complained, and never begged for help unless absolutely necessary. As time went by, he grew into a young man, always carrying the memory of that one glass of milk and the promise he had made to help someone in need. Several years passed, and the boy, now a young adult, had managed to complete his basic education. He worked during the day and studied at night, determined to build a better future for himself. He realized, however, that to continue his studies and secure a better job, he would need to move to the city. Despite the difficulties he faced, he didn't let his circumstances stop him. The young man moved to the city and began working odd jobs to pay for his studies. He knew that without a good education, he would never be able to rise above the poverty he had been born into. The jobs he took were hard, often paying very little, but he never complained. He worked tirelessly to pay his school fees and to buy books, always determined to succeed. During this time, the young man often went without food, just as he had in his younger years. He would sometimes go days without a proper meal, but he never considered begging for help. He always remembered his mother's words, "Never beg, no matter how difficult life becomes." Instead, he relied on his strength and determination to get him through the toughest times. One day, after many long hours of work and study, the young man collapsed from exhaustion. He had been pushing himself too hard, and his body simply couldn't take it anymore. He woke up in a hospital bed, confused and disoriented. A kind doctor stood by his side, explaining that he had been brought in by a passerby who had found him unconscious on the street. The young man, despite his weakened state, thanked the doctor and tried to leave the hospital as soon as possible. He couldn't afford to stay there, and he certainly couldn't afford the medical bills. However, the doctor insisted that he stay and rest for a few days to regain his strength. The young man, not wanting to impose, agreed reluctantly. As the days passed, the young man got to know the doctor better. He learned that the doctor was a man of great compassion who often treated patients who couldn't afford to pay. The doctor had a reputation for helping the poor and needy, much like the woman who had helped the young man years before. This reminded him of his promise to help others once he was able. When the time came for the young man to leave the hospital, the doctor handed him a small bill. The young man looked at it and was surprised to see that the amount was far less than he had expected. He asked the doctor why the bill was so low, and the doctor simply smiled and said, "You remind me of someone I once knew, a boy who, despite all the hardships he faced, never gave up. I want to help you just as someone once helped me." The young man left the hospital, feeling grateful for the doctor's kindness. He knew that the world was full of challenges, but he also knew that there were good people who were willing to help those in need. He vowed to work even harder so that one day he could repay the kindness he had received and help others in the same way. Years passed, and the young man eventually graduated from university. He secured a job in a reputable company and began earning a steady income. His life had changed dramatically from the days of poverty and hunger, but he never forgot his humble beginnings. He continued to work hard, and over time, he became a successful businessman. One day, as he was walking through the city, the young man saw a boy, no older than 10, standing on the side of the road, looking lost and hungry. The sight reminded him of his own childhood, and without hesitation, he approached the boy. "Are you hungry?" he asked gently. The boy nodded, too ashamed to speak. The young man took him to a nearby restaurant and bought him a meal. As they sat together, the boy told him about his life. He had no parents and lived on the streets, surviving on the scraps of food he could find. The young man listened carefully, his heart aching for the child. He remembered the promise he had made long ago to help those in need. After the meal, the young man gave the boy some money and told him to find shelter for the night. He promised the boy that he would help him find a better life, just as he had been helped when he was young. "You remind me of myself," he said, "and I want to help you the way others once helped me." The young man kept his word. Over the next few weeks, he arranged for the boy to stay in a local orphanage, ensuring that he had food, shelter, and the opportunity to attend school. The boy was hesitant at first, unsure of whether to trust the young man, but eventually he realized that this was his chance to escape the hardships of life on the streets. The young man, now a successful businessman, began to devote more of his time and resources to helping others. He established a foundation to support children from poor families, providing them with education, food, and medical care. He believed that by giving these children a chance, he was honoring the memory of his mother and the woman who had given him milk when he was hungry. Through his foundation, the young man helped hundreds of children escape poverty and build better lives for themselves. He knew that education was the key to breaking the cycle of poverty, and he worked tirelessly to ensure that every child had the opportunity to learn and grow. Years later, as he stood at the opening ceremony of a new school his foundation had built, the young man looked out at the children and smiled. He knew that his life had come full circle. From the boy who had once been hungry and alone, he had become a man who was now able to help others in need. As he spoke to the crowd, he said, "I was once like these children, hungry, lost, and without hope. But through the kindness of strangers, I found my way. I made a promise long ago to help others, and today, I am fulfilling that promise." The young man's journey had been long and difficult, but he had never given up. Through hard work, determination, and the kindness of others, he had overcome every obstacle that life had thrown his way. And now, he was passing on that kindness to the next generation, ensuring that they too would have the chance to succeed. As the young man's foundation flourished, he continued to dedicate his life to helping others. He had achieved success and was respected by everyone in the community. His name was now synonymous with kindness, generosity, and the spirit of giving back. But he never forgot the lessons life had taught him through hardship, and he always remembered his roots. Many years had passed since he had last seen the woman who had given him that glass of milk and food when he was starving as a child. He often thought about her and wondered how her life had turned out. He had no way of finding her, but her memory stayed with him, serving as a reminder of the power of small acts of kindness. One day, as he was visiting the village where he had grown up, he came across a small school. It was the same school where he had studied as a child. Feeling nostalgic, he decided to visit the school and see how things had changed. As he entered the school, memories of his childhood came flooding back. The long walks to school, the struggle to pay the fees, and the endless hours of study. While walking through the school grounds, he noticed a familiar face. It was the same woman who had helped him all those years ago. She was now much older, her hair gray and her steps slow, but there was no mistaking the kindness in her eyes. The young man was filled with emotion as he realized that this was the woman who had changed his life with just a single act of compassion. He approached her slowly, unsure of how to express his gratitude after all these years. The woman, who didn't recognize him at first, smiled warmly and asked if he needed any help. The young man, his voice trembling, said, "You may not remember me, but many years ago, you gave me a glass of milk and some food when I was hungry. You saved my life, and today, I am here to thank you." The woman's eyes filled with tears as she realized who he was. She remembered the little boy who had come to her door, starving and thirsty. She had never expected to see him again, and certainly not as a successful man who had achieved so much. "I didn't do anything special," she said softly. "I only did what any mother would do for a child in need." The young man smiled and said, "You did more than you could ever imagine. You gave me hope when I had none, and that hope carried me through some of the darkest moments of my life. I made a promise that day, to help others, just as you helped me. And now, I want to repay you." The woman shook her head, insisting that she didn't need anything. She was content with the life she had lived and the small acts of kindness she had performed over the years. But the young man was determined to honor his promise. He told her about his foundation and how it had helped hundreds of children escape poverty, providing them with education and opportunities they never would have had otherwise. He then asked the woman if there was anything he could do for her. "You've already done more than enough by living a good life and helping others," she said. "But if you truly want to do something for me, then continue your work. Keep helping those who need it most." The young man nodded, his heart full of gratitude and respect for the woman who had changed his life. He realized that no matter how successful he became, the greatest wealth he could ever possess was the ability to help others. Over the next few years, the young man continued to expand his foundation, building schools, hospitals, and shelters for the poor. He worked tirelessly to ensure that no child would have to suffer the way he had. His foundation became known not just in his village, but throughout the country. People admired him for his generosity, but he never sought recognition or praise. For him, the true reward was seeing the smiles on the faces of the children he helped. One day, he received an urgent message. The woman who had once given him the glass of milk was gravely ill. She was in a hospital in the city, and her condition was worsening. Without a second thought, the young man rushed to the hospital to be by her side. When he arrived, he found her lying in a hospital bed, weak and frail, but still the same kind woman he had known as a child. He sat by her bedside and held her hand, telling her how much she had meant to him. "You saved my life," he said, "and I owe everything to you. I've tried to live my life in a way that honors the kindness you showed me, but I can never truly repay you for what you did." The woman smiled faintly and said, "You have repaid me 100 times over by helping others. That's all I ever wanted, to see you succeed and to know that the kindness I showed you has been passed on to others." The young man stayed by her side for days, refusing to leave until he was sure she was comfortable. He arranged for the best doctors to care for her, sparing no expense. He knew that he couldn't save her, but he wanted to make sure that her final days were peaceful. On the day she passed away, the young man was by her side, holding her hand and thanking her once again for the gift she had given him. As she took her last breath, he felt an overwhelming sense of loss, but also a deep sense of gratitude. The woman had been a guiding light in his life, and he knew that he would carry her memory with him forever. After her passing, the young man continued to honor her memory by expanding his foundation and helping even more people. He dedicated a new hospital in her name, ensuring that her legacy of kindness and compassion would live on for generations to come. So friends, from this story, we get these 4 lessons. The first important message is that one should not fear change. Life is full of unexpected events, but these changes often lead to something better. Just as the young man accepted the trials of life, whether it was the loss of his parents, poverty, or hunger, he learned to view these challenges as stepping stones toward something greater. Accepting life's ups and downs allows us to grow and discover new opportunities. The second lesson teaches that no matter how dark things get, even the smallest light can bring hope. This is symbolized in the story by the woman's small act of kindness, who offered a glass of milk to a starving boy, which changed his life forever. Thirdly, do good for others, and good will return to you. Selflessly helping others creates a chain of positive actions. Your kindness can change lives, just as the woman's kindness changed the young man's. And final message is, never lower your self-respect by begging. Always rely on your own hard work and abilities. Begging strips away dignity and makes one dependent on others. By working hard, we maintain our self-respect and independence. Friends, if this story has moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. By joining us, you'll hear more tales that inspire compassion, resilience, and hope. Together, let's spread kindness and uplift each other, because in the end, it's our small actions that truly shape the world.